American voting system. How does it work? In an indirect election, residents of the United States who are enrolled to vote within one of the 50 states or even in Washington, D.C., cast ballots for representatives of the Electoral College rather than directly for the president and vice of the nation. Once 4 years on the first Tuesday in November, the US elects a new president. To qualify to be considered, a candidate should be at minimum 35 years old, born and grew up in the US, and have resided in the country for the past 14 years. In the year before the election, contenders typically announce their plans to run for president. Because there is no central body that organizes elections, thousands of administrators assist local administrations in organizing local elections. Let's take a look at how the American voting system works. 1 year before the elections. Democratic and Republican candidates for the two major political parties have started their campaigning. They organize their squad and begin going on tour across the nation to solicit assistance and generate money for their initiatives. Elections in the United States are held in what categories? There are two basic types of elections, primary and general. Several states and municipal jurisdictions additionally hold off-year elections for their elected officials, both primary and general, in odd-numbered years, in supplementary to the parties including general elections performed in even-numbered years, which also comprise political contests for the US Congress. The field of candidates running in the general election is determined in a primary election, which serves as a nominating election. When a candidate wins a primary, a political party will typically promote or support them for the general election. A general election is a vote held to select from among candidates nominated for federal, state, and/or municipal offices via a preliminary or by convention, caucus, or petition. Choosing a winner from among the different contenders who have been elected by parties are competing as independents, not connected to a major political party, or in some situations are write-in candidates is the goal of a general election. The ballot can also include additional government requirements, legislative proposals, referendums, and municipal bonds approving the financing of funds for public projects. Additionally, a lot of states have special elections that can be held at any moment for a particular reason, such as replacing an unanticipated vacancy in an appointed position. Presidential primaries and caucuses. The primary and caucus elections take place in either January or February of the electoral year to begin the electoral process. Voting for potential candidates for president from all of the main parties takes place in secret ballot primaries that are coordinated by state and municipal administrations. Caucuses are exclusive gatherings that political parties themselves organize. In this case, voters openly select their preferred candidate. The results are then tallied and the number of delegates awarded to each candidate is determined. Delegates. A certain number of delegates are allotted to every state. Here the District of Columbia, as well as some US territories, typically based on their population. Additionally, a methodology is used to reward states that, for instance, supported the presidential candidate of the previous party to alter the number. These delegates cast ballots to select each party's presidential nominee at the National Party Convention on behalf of their state. Two primary categories of delegates exist. Pledged delegates, who are required to back the contender to whom they have been allocated in a primary or caucus, are different from unpledged or pledged delegates, who are free to support any candidate they choose. National conventions. In the summer of a presidential election year, each party holds its national convention. The party's nominee must be approved by a majority of delegates, a decision that is frequently made and known before the national conventions. The candidate for president will be chosen in the national convention if a majority cannot be established. General election campaigning. The presidential contenders begin their nationwide campaigns when each political party has selected its nominee. To gain the backing of voters around the country, they hold rallies and participate in discussions. Additionally, they inform society of their goals and opinions. Electoral College. People go to the polls on election day to cast their ballots for the candidates they like. Indirect voting determines who becomes president and vice president. Both are selected by voters in the Electoral College system. The number of electors that each state receives depends on how many seats it has in the Senate and House of Representatives. There are 3 electors for Washington, D.C., but none for the other US territories. There are 538 electors in all, 435 seats in the House of Representatives, 100 seats in the Senate, and 3 seats for Washington, D.C. all votes are subject to a nationwide count after being cast. The winner-takes-all system is used in Washington, D.C. and 48 other states, in which the election champion receives every vote cast in that state. The only exceptions are Maine and Nebraska, both of which employ a proportionate method. To become president, a nominee must win a minimum of 270 electors. The Electoral College votes in the weeks following Election Day, and the result is typically declared on election night. In other elections held in the United States, candidates are chosen by popular vote. However, voters do not directly elect the vice president and the president. Instead, they are picked by electors through the Electoral College method. The Constitution is the source of the electoral process. It was a middleway between a congressional vote and a vote by the general public. The electors. Each state receives the same number of electors as Congress members, House and Senate. Along with the 3 electors from Washington, D.C., there are presently 538 electors in total. The political parties in each state pick their separate list of prospective voters. Per whom, how, and when electors are chosen differs by state. How does the Electoral College process work? Your vote is added to a statewide aggregate once you cast your presidential ballot. The victor receives all of the vote in the Electoral College for that state in the remaining 48 states and Washington, D.C. The electors in Maine and Nebraska are distributed according to a proportional scheme. To win the presidency, a candidate must receive the support of a majority of 270 electors, or more than 50% of all electoral votes in the United States. A projected champion is typically declared during the election night of November following your vote. But when the electors gather in their states around the middle of December, that's when the real Electoral College vote happens. View the 2020 election timeline provided by the Electoral College. The Constitution doesn't mandate that electors support the candidate who won the popular vote in their state, but some states do. When an elector casts a ballot for someone else, their state may punish them, remove them from office, and replace them with another elector, or even bring legal action against them. Inauguration Day. On January 20th, the US Capitol in Washington, D.C. will host Inauguration Day. The Vice President takes the oath of office first, then the President. Following the recitation of the Declaration of Office, which has been practiced since the late 18th century, both formally became President and Vice President. So that's all for today. I hope you liked this video and see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for future updates. Thanks for watching.